Okay, welcome to lactate presentation. Got the diagram of the exchange between the liver and the skeletal muscle. Basically, it's just an overview here of skeletal muscle and the liver. Essentially, it's called the Cori cycle. And if we move down into some of the key steps of these pathways, the Cori cycle consists of a lot of stuff, but these four I kind of wanted to key in on: skeletal muscle, blood plasma, the liver, and glyconeogenesis. So the Cori cycle is the exchange of lactate in the liver, in the blood. So if you remember from the previous presentation of glycolysis, you have glycogen changing into glucose, which changes into pyruvate. Those are kind of the major points. There's other enzymes and stuff happening there, but so when we get down to that pyruvate, the two pyruvate molecules, and oxygen is present, we go through aerobic respiration. Now, once that happens, it turns into acetyl-CoA, goes into the Krebs cycle, etc. And that whole process to create the ATP in order for us to do what we're doing. Now, under heavy conditions, where there's no oxygen present, like we're doing a heavy workout or a sprint or something like that, we go into something called the anaerobic metabolism. So at that point of the two pyruvate molecules, if there's no oxygen present, that pyruvate molecule osmotically gets changed into lactic acid by an enzyme called lactate dehydrogenase. And that basically is lactic acid, a pyruvate molecule with a hydrogen atom attached to it. Okay, now that makes it acidic. Okay, and our cells don't like acid, which is a good thing, because if our cells are bathed in acid, we would essentially we would die, right? So what's really weird is, well, it's not weird, it's just lactic decreases pH and increases acidity, right? And so those bonds inside those chemical bonds are all electric bonds, and they disrupt the cells and they turn off glycolysis due to this buildup. So bad for the cell, right? So now that lactate has to get changed and sent out of the cell, and that's where this cycle comes in. So that lactate gets sent out into the blood, and it goes to other places, but we're going to go into the liver right now because the liver has a lot of mitochondria. The reason it has a lot of mitochondria because it's the poison control of the body. It's able to process high acidic stuff, high poisonous stuff, and change it so it's safe to get rid of the body, or change it into another chemical that can be reused by the body. And that's where we're going to talk about glyconeogenesis. Why glyconeogenesis? We can only store a certain amount of sugar. Blood plasma, cytoplasma, tissue, they store a maximum of about 20 grams of glycogens. Okay. Now that glycogen stores are 190 grams of usable sugar. So on a daily basis, we use regular 160 grams to survive, and 75% of that is for the brain. So put that in perspective of kinesiology, like an athlete or like a swimmer, these 500 to 600 grams of sugar. So one day we would run out and die. So we need this extra, extra complementary sugar supply that we need for the cellular supply, because we don't have a lot of storage inside of the cells. Not a massive supply, so there has to be some other area that we can get it from. So basically, in glyconeogenesis, the lactate molecule goes into the liver, where it's affected by the lactate dehydrogenase, which then changes it, right? Wipes off the hydrogen ion, and we get it back down to pyruvate, which then changes it back into glucose. This process is sort of the reverse of the Krebs cycle, but it's really, it is, but there's 3 steps inside of there that have to be acted on differently than the Krebs cycle in order for it to work. It's a beautiful chemistry design that would probably take an hour to explain, but it's in a nutshell, that's basically what's happening. And so we're changing the lactate into glucose through gluconeogenesis, goes into the bloodstream, can then be fed into the skeletal muscle. If there's oxygen present, then we create the ATP that we have. So the next slide, how do we turn this into some practical stuff? In order to understand how these pathways affected by exercise intensity and training adaptation, we have to understand the lactate threshold. So what are we feeling there? What are we feeling in the muscles, right? It's not really lactate. What it is it's the hydrogen ions, right? It's changing and it's making the environment more acidic, and it's irritating our skeletal muscles, which is a good thing because we don't want a lot of acid inside of our bodies, okay? But what's a good thing is that we can train to increase a lot of our body to adapt to this lactate. So, for instance, cardio health, right? So one thing that's really great about the cardiac muscle is that it takes lactate because there's a lot of oxygen present in the cardiac muscle. So when lactate goes there, that's one of the places that lactate goes, because there's so much oxygen present. It wipes off the hydrogen ion, turns into lactate, can easily be changed into pyruvate. Plenty of oxygen goes right into the Krebs cycle and all that, and creates the ATP that we have. So multiple fibers is another adaptation. More muscle means more mitochondria, which means more area for lactate to be dealt with and changed and moved, right? Fat oxidative capacity. We have more muscle fibers. We have more mitochondria. Of course, we're going to be able to oxidize fat that much better. GLUT4, which is the transfer of these chemicals, lactate and glucose, in and out of the cells. Those get more efficient, and then of course we create more glycogen stores, which is a huge adaptation, which will fuel all kinds of metabolic pathways. So let's go down to the next question. How do lactate and lactic acid differ? Well, they really don't. Again, here's some of the things what goes into it. But remember, it really is just a pyruvate molecule with a hydrogen ion connected to it. Okay, so essentially it just needs to go. They're both almost identical. Okay, so I don't see there's too much difference there. So we could just kind of move on from there. Can lactate be used metabolically? Yes. As we kind of showed through this process, it will be changed to glucose. So yes, I would say it's almost similar, if not better, right? Lactate has to be made to survive. We explained that. Red blood cells are lactate users and producers because they don't have any mitochondria. They run off of lactate, and then they produce lactate inside of the blood. Liver cells and cardiac cells, they thrive on it. We explained that. The brain is fueled by it. That's kind of one I wanted to kind of narrow in on. And the brain is run on glucose, right? So it thrives on it. And that makes a lot of sense because when we produce a lot of lactate when we're working out, our cognitive function increases, and research has shown that our actually test scores and all that stuff go up when you work out. So, and what's really great about that is it's already in lactate form. It's already in pyruvate form. It just wipes off the hydrogen atom, turns right into pyruvate, jumps right into the area. So it almost bypasses a step. So it's almost even better sometimes for the body. Lactate as a hormone. Yeah, and yeah, no, you know what I mean? It tells other parts, cells, other tissues. It goes to those areas. It tells those areas, you know what I mean? It's a reader, and it's a communicator. So in a sense, it sort of acts like a hormone inside the blood system because it knows where to go. It goes to liver, goes to cardiac muscles. So in a sense, it acts similar. It sends out signals, right, to other parts of the body where aerobic capacity is better, you know, and it can utilize that and create the glucose that we need. The last part are the consequences of lactate accumulation and our ability to stay into exercise. Yeah, like we said with the training adaptations, there's going to be a certain amount of, if you want to increase your lactate threshold, you're going to have to put in the work and you're going to have to put in the burn but as you can see, the body will adapt and the body will increase its fitness levels. But it is a byproduct of, to kind of sum it up, it is a byproduct of anaerobic metabolism. Aerobic and anaerobic, they are complementary. That's the one thing that I need to stress here, is that they're not against each other. Like one source is for this and one source is this. It's kind of an interwoven little dance that helps each other out. One helps another one and one helps another one. It's just a different process, but the whole body is in harmony. It aids glycolysis in kind of a roundabout way. So we just can't you know, we can't deny it, and we can make it even work even better. So heavy workouts, less oxygen, pyruvate gains hydrogen ions, becomes lactate. Okay, again, that has to be dealt with, and the body does deal with it because it hates to be acidic and it acts as a fuel. So actually, lactate is another fuel source for the body to perform the workouts that we need. But again, we have to train our bodies in a way in order to better deal with that lactate accumulation. Because our fitness will suffer because we won't be able to push ourselves beyond the limits. Right? Lactate goes out of the body to transform or store or supply other processes. Hydrogen ions are taken off to recreate glucose. I mean, that's basically what we're trying to explain here, is that lactase is not a bad thing, and it's definitely not the buildup of lactic that is causing fatigue. It's actually the buildup of hydrogen ions. Lactate is actually a good thing. So I hope that was helpful. I hope it was informative. So thanks again. Have a nice day.